Welcome to the Topic of the Month with Kim Wardlow, an AINC original podcast. It's not easy being blind or going through vision loss, but we'll help you navigate these waters. Press on. Push forward. You've got this.
Hello and welcome to the Topic of the Month, brought to you by the Audio Information Network of Colorado. I'm Kim Wardlow, your host. I'm the Executive Director at AINC. So today is December 6th. It is Colorado Gives Day. So if you haven't already, please make your donations today. I know all of us that participate really appreciate that, and it really helps all of us to end our year on a good note. So thank you for that. We're starting a new month, so we're talking about adapting to vision and hearing loss this month. And we have many of our listeners that have a combination. So while our services primarily have targeted folks that have vision loss, we do certainly have many listeners that also have some hearing loss. So we wanted to incorporate that into our Topic of the Month programming. And as our guest for this month, we will have Ellie Carlson, and she coaches individuals who are blind or have low vision or are deafblind to help restore their confidence and independence. So she will be joining us when we come back.
This is Topic of the Month with Kim Wardlow. If you enjoy what you hear, please visit AIN Colorado for more shows, news, and articles read by our amazing staff and volunteers. If you have a question for Kim or would like to recommend a guest for future shows, please visit aincolorado.org/podcast-guest. Thanks for listening and enjoy.
Ellie, thanks you for joining us for this month to talk about adapting to vision and hearing loss. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Kim. Happy to be here.
So just to start off, I always like to ask folks, because we're always entering a new month, is there something about December that you really like?
I love the holiday lights that go up this time of year, seeing the star on the mountain and just downtown areas and individual homes and neighborhoods light up. It's really festive.
I agree. I really enjoy the lights myself, especially with the short days. Having the light displays really helps. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you have a master's degree in education, the blind and visually impaired with orientation and mobility. I didn't even know that was something you could get a degree in. So you've been specialized for a while. How did you get interested in working with the visually impaired and those with hearing loss?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. Thanks. So I grew up here right down the street in Boulder, Colorado, at the time when students with disabilities were being mainstreamed into the regular classroom. And an option for me during study hall hour was to volunteer in that resource room. And it was so cool. They were doing life skills, not just academics. They were learning banking and budgeting and reading the bus schedule and going on the bus for field trips. And so the life skills really attracted me, and I became buddies with a couple kids for Special Olympics and enjoyed volunteering with adaptive recreation, just figuring out an alternative way to do whatever somebody wanted to do, that there's always a way. It might be different from how someone else would do it, and it might take a longer time. That led me into college at Colorado State University, where the first thing I did after checking into the dorms was go down to the disability office and offer to volunteer there. They reported that there were a few students on campus who were blind or visually impaired, used a white cane or a guide dog, and might need some help getting around campus, finding their classes at the beginning of the semester. So I took that assignment, and that was the first time I heard the words orientation and mobility, that, yeah, that is a job, and you have a degree, and you get paid to teach people one-on-one outdoors. And here I am. So some of my first assignments were with folks who had combined vision and hearing loss. My first job out of grad school was at the Helen Keller National Center in Long Island, New York. So I'm fluent in sign language, and just the combination has always been a fascination and then become a specialty.
And I know you train guide dogs as well. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So after getting my master's in orientation mobility, I was a puppy raiser. I had been a puppy raiser already for guide dog programs. And Leader Dogs for the Blind in Michigan has a dedicated deaf-blind program and recruited me for a position there. I went through their apprenticeship, became a certified guide dog mobility instructor, worked on their campus as well as in the field, and then began working as an independent contractor through my business Canines and Canes to support the needs of students and at all the organizations, anyone who has that combined vision and hearing loss.
So when somebody comes to you that is needing assistance, how do you get them started? Where does a person start? And is there a difference in where they start depending on the extent of their vision loss or the extent of their hearing loss, and what that combination is?
Certainly, great question. Yeah, so likely somebody has been living with one or the other already. If they've already been diagnosed with a vision impairment, they have an ophthalmologist or a low vision specialist. And the next step would be to go to an audiologist and confirm the scope of their hearing loss and look for solutions clinically. And then based on that, they'd be eligible for services with the Helen Keller National Center or some of the other state and regional programs. Conversely, if somebody's already been diagnosed with hearing loss and they're new to the vision loss world, they would need to connect with an ophthalmologist or low vision specialist to get that determination of legal blindness that will make them eligible for services.
Once they have that from those two medical providers, then what is the next step after that?
Certainly. So with documentation that you have a vision loss and a hearing loss, here in Colorado, we've got the Colorado Commission for Deaf, Hard of Hearing, and Deaf Blind. And side note, in January, I'll be starting with that agency as their deaf blind outreach coordinator full-time. So I'm excited for that opportunity.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. So CCDHHDB is our local primary provider, but each state has a lighthouse for the blind or a commission for the deaf or, some agency that is a great resource and can either provide directly or refer to other agencies that offer orientation and mobility training. If somebody is in need of safer travel skills to learn how to use the white cane, how to use public transportation, if they're new to giving up driving, or just have had some close calls, that's a great place to start. These agencies often offer a support service provider, which it's somebody who can be your eyes and your ears. They're familiar with human guide technique. They may know some sign language or a lot of sign language, but it's someone who can take an individual out into the community for errands, appointments, maybe at home they're helping to read mail or go through files, just taking some of the responsibility off of family members so that the husband can still be the husband and the daughter can still be the daughter. And there's a dedicated professional to help with those eyes and ears kind of tasks.
I have seen that in the past where a family member is sort of tasked with lots of those things, and it can really strain those relationships.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So once people are connected, and those are some great suggestions, we're always trying to help people connect with resources that would benefit them. What about the time frame for adapting? I feel like as people in general in our culture, we're always rushing around trying to do things, and adapting to something like vision and or hearing loss, I think could take some time. And what should people expect? I'm guessing it's probably very individual from person to person.
It sure is. Yeah. It is a situation of grief and loss. So when we think about mourning the loss of a loved one, people go through that in different time frames. They go through the different stages of grief and loss in different orders or in different cycles. And, losing your vision, losing your hearing is no different. So everybody's going to go through it a little differently. And so knowing what the time frame on that is hard to place. Another resource I want to mention is through some of these state agencies or the Helen Keller National Center is technology. And I think one of the first skills that people are faced with is, how do I use my technology? How do I answer the phone? How do I send an email? How do I read a document? So there's a national program it initially was called the Deaf Blind Equipment Distribution Program, or ICANN Connect. So each state has a provider that offers things like accessible phones. Perhaps somebody just needs a phone that has the ability to adjust the volume beyond a regular settings of a phone or adjust the pitch. Frequently, people are losing those high-frequency hearing loss, so women's voices, children's voices, certain foreign accents are lost to them. But being able to change the pitch, dial that down into a lower frequency, they can capture it and understand better. There are some over-the-counter devices, as well as prescribed devices such as hearing aids. And there are specialists who know this equipment, who can assess an individual and look at what their needs are, what they currently have, and what might be a better fit for them in this new situation.
Well, I think all of us, most of us anyway, are so dependent upon our technology. And if we can't use it in the way that we're used to, I think that can be almost frightening. I know myself, I'm surprised how dependent I am on my phone. I never thought I would have so much of my life on my phone. So I could see where that would be kind of daunting for someone, whether it's a phone or a computer or anything, feeling like they needed to relearn how to use it, and maybe not even being sure, not knowing that there are accessibility features that they can
Absolutely.
use.
And a lot of the devices do have built-in accessibility features, so it's not always the need to purchase additional equipment. It's just somebody showing you how to adjust those accessibility settings for larger font size or a black background with white letters instead. And also there's a lot of apps. So there's apps for wayfinding of a pedestrian GPS once you're traveling independently. There are apps for rideshare if you're no longer driving, if you can hire a driver to take you to an appointment. There's apps for purchasing your groceries and other items to have delivered. So getting familiar with the apps on your phone is a great incentive for some of that technology training.
Mm-hmm. And there's so much that's so helpful. How do you advise people that maybe they're just getting frustrated? There's a lot. Maybe there's a lot of things to learn, and being able to kind of figure out prioritizing what they need to learn first, so that they don't get overwhelmed when it seems like there's so many things to learn at once, or if they're just frustrated because they feel like they're not adapting as quickly as they wanted.
Sure. Yeah, it's easy to be hard on yourself because in the past, it didn't take as much time and you could just see it and hear it and get it done quickly. And now things take longer. So not only being patient with yourself, but asking others to be patient with you. So, how do you prioritize things? I think it's just based on what natural supports you have available and safety. So if you've had a fall or a close call with a vehicle, getting that orientation and mobility training to keep yourself safe when you're walking around is absolutely key. So connecting with an O&M specialist right away, getting on their schedule and developing those skills for your safety. And then leaning into your natural supports. If you have somebody who's available to drive you, you may not need to pursue the support service program right away. Some of them do have long waiting lists. So leaning into whoever you have available, perhaps a paratransit company or a neighbor is willing to help with some of that. Likewise, if there's someone willing to do some reading, go through the mail or help sort and file bills and things, that may take some of the stress off of learning the technology to do that independently right away. So I would say safety, and then learn the skills for yourself that you don't have natural supports to help with.
Could you elaborate on the safety aspect a little bit? I could see where it might be a concern for a person that has lost vision and hearing.
Certainly. Yeah. It is natural for folks to kind of isolate once they lose vision and hearing. It may be very stressful or very uncomfortable to try to keep up with social gatherings, when there's multiple voices in the room, or a fast pace of, everybody's walking together to, a movie or a show or something. So folks tend to isolate, and then their world shrinks, and then mental health issues such as depression and the anxiety of the fear of going out and what are people going to think of me, the stigma of not just having the one loss, but having a double whammy, that's a concern for folks. So, I will say that carrying a white cane, its primary job is as a probe, a tactile probe to show you what is in front of your feet before you put your feet there. If you feel a drop off, then you're prepared to take a step down that curb. If you feel a change from tile to carpet, your feet are prepared for that change. And it could be a great landmark. Carpet usually indicates maybe it's a floor mat right by the outdoor of the building. So getting familiar with those things can really be helpful for reducing anxiety and increasing safety. The second thing that a white cane does is it identifies yourself as somebody with vision loss in public. It's so common for folks, especially with a combined vision loss, to be misunderstood by others. Without carrying a white cane, without presenting yourself as, guys, I can't see well or hear well, folks make other assumptions. They might think that you're not intelligent. They might think that you're drunk or, on drugs. Balance can be affected if you're stumbling, if you're not hearing the way that you pronounce words and you're slurring your speech. There have been individuals who are deaf and blind who've been picked up by the police for intoxicated walking down the sidewalk and put in a drunk tank.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
yeah.
And how scary is that? If you're all of a sudden
very
you're in this
scary
situation and
very scary.
Feeling heard, in terms of being able to explain your condition.
Right. So that's an extreme scenario. However, it happens all the time. Just, we all kind of make assumptions and judge. So if you're walking in public and walking cautiously, or you bump into somebody, they might think you're a total jerk. They might think you're a total weirdo. So by carrying the white cane, it eliminates those assumptions and people understand, got it. You don't see well. Now I understand how to handle, you give you a little more space, offer you some help. It does not mean grab my arm and help me cross the street every single moment. It's not a pity party or a, kick me sign on your back. It's just information. It helps other folks know what is going on and how to be supportive.
And I know we've talked about that last month about working with others and educating others should they run up and see your cane and think you need assistance that perhaps you don't.
Sure. Being able to accept or decline assistance is a really good skill to have, and that's part of the O&M curriculum.
Right. Is there any other advice that you would give folks who are just starting out on their journey, or maybe to a friend or family member of a person that is trying to know how to, best assist them?
Absolutely. Just know you are not the only person experiencing this. You are not the first nor the last one to deal with whatever issue you're dealing with, and you don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are lots of folks before you who have encountered this experience, and there is peer support available. Starting back when chat groups were a thing where people could connect on the computer and just write in, hey, I had this experience today. Have you experienced that before? And how did you handle it? Or, gosh, I'm struggling with this task. Is this something you've struggled with? And how did you handle it? What are some solutions? So getting peer support either through a chat like that, Now there's Facebook groups for pretty much every condition and situation. We've got some in-person support groups that are held through different programs, as well as virtual support groups that kind of bridge the geography and the need to drive somewhere. You can log in from home once you have the technology skills to do that. So getting peer support is huge. And those peer support groups are not a pity party. It is people who can, you're among friends, you're among peers, they get it, they understand it. So you can kind of laugh with each other, not at each other, about the silly things that happen. For example, I'm sighted and hearing, but man, when I had COVID, my brain was not working properly. And there was a day where I'm like, okay, I'm going to sanitize all the surfaces in my home. I'm feeling better. I'm moving forward. And I took a spray bottle of cleaner and I sprayed all the surfaces, only to realize that it was Shout laundry stain remover.
Oh, no.
So this is something that my blind friends laugh at and say, oh, yep, done that or done something similar. And, don't beat yourself up over it. We're all just doing our best here. But the support groups are a great source for technology tips as well. Everybody is kind of going through this together. And gosh, did you know there's this new app out? Or whoa, did you know that this program can also read to you in addition to magnify the text? So leaning onto peers is huge. And social outings designed to be accessible are great as well.
And just in the example that you gave of somebody who doesn't have a cane, perhaps being misunderstood and not heard, how do you help encourage the folks you're working with? How do you help them to be able to find their voice? Not just in extreme situations like that, but it may just be in that either asking for help or saying, oh, thank you so much, but I don't need this particular help.
Certainly. Yeah. I mean, as we mentioned about the adjustment period and how folks are going through this process at an individual rate. If a friend or family member approaches them and says, hey, I'm worried about your safety, or gosh, I can't drive you to every appointment. Do you have other ways of getting around? The individual may or may not be ready to say, you're right, and I should be using a cane, or I should be sign up for some classes. That may not be their first thought. It may be, oh man, everyone's abandoning me and I'm just going to sit in my armchair and give up. But after a couple days in their armchair, it gets boring. And they may think then later on, okay, well, they mentioned this O&M and gosh, they gave me this phone number, or I do have a friend that I know who uses a white cane and maybe I can lean on them to see what their experience was. Just because someone isn't receptive in the moment doesn't mean that they didn't hear you and they're not ever going to follow through. So be gentle and be patient with folks, and they may be receptive to that thought in their own time.
Great. Well, Ellie, thank you so much. You've given us a lot of information and some great tips. Next week, Ellie will be back with us and we'll be looking at the Helen Keller Center and the services that organization provides, and drilling into that a little bit deeper. Also, be sure to tune in to Aftersight, the interview show that Penn does with other individuals who have lost vision and how their lives are continuing on after that, as well as Bill Lundgren's program, Blind Sight, talking about a whole variety of mental health issues. So those are other podcasts that we're producing, and I encourage you to listen to those as well. A final reminder for Colorado Gives Day. If you have any suggestions for us, you can always go to our website, aincolorado.org, and send us any suggestions or comments that you might have. We always appreciate getting those. Or certainly you can call us 303-786-7777. So thank you for joining us, and we will hopefully have you be tuning in again next week. Thanks so much.